Hi, my name is Mark, G1DX. I'm going to tell you in a moment why I think the Flex Radio 6000 and 8000 series radios are the absolute pinnacle of SDR transceiver design. 100 watts, no harmonics, multi-mode, receiving a long way through to 6 meters, incredible band scope, easy to remote control. So stay tuned and we'll go into the details of why I really like this Flex and why I'm pulling the trigger. So let's start off with some of the things that I've picked out. These are personal for me, why I really like the Flex and why it's seduced me. Firstly, it may sound like a small thing to mention, but it's the band scope. And without question, the Flex's band scope is the best I've ever seen, period. Yes, better than the Anan as well. It's unique in that it's got 4 colours of signal strength. So on the ICOMs and the Kenwoods, and I think most others, it goes from red to strong through to fading out to white to pale blue, etc. The Flex has got another level of purple for extra strong signals. It may seem like a small thing, but the Flex's band scope is so clear and so clean and free of noise that you can pick out QRP signals and the signals right in the back of the box visually, which you absolutely can't do. And just to be absolutely clear about that, I've tested that with my other transceivers, like my Yaesu, whose band scope is good, but because of the noise on it, you can't pick out the kind of granularity you can on the Flex. And sometimes it's nice just to see at a glance what's out there. So the band scope, now it's a small thing, but for me, it's a big thing because I like a nice band scope. It's something you're looking at all the time. And the other thing about the band scope, sorry to go on about it, but it's also got AGC on it. Now, the Anan does this, but many of the transceivers we sell do not do that. And by that I mean, if you adjust the RF gain or the antenna gain, or sorry, the preamps, it will affect your band scope. On the Flex, it doesn't, because the AGC on the band scope will automatically adjust it. I think that's really cool, and it certainly is less fiddling. One of the other very clever features I like about the Flex is, believe it or not, the signal strength meter. So the signal strength meter on the Flex is unaffected by where you've set the preamp settings for the antenna or the RF gain stroke AGC. And you can cycle it between signal strength, S points, or dBm. I think that's super cool. It's nice because I'm often having to fiddle about on my other transceivers if someone wants a signal strength report, because by default I run my transceiver with in IPO mode and with the RF gain turned down, and also I put an attenuator in as well. That affects your signal strength reading, which can be annoying if you're trying to give someone a signal strength report. And it's a small thing. What's really cool about this radio, of course, everyone knows it's legendary for remote control. It is really super easy to set up for the average person in the average household, i.e. someone that hasn't got gazillions of firewalls in place. You literally hook the Flex up to your internet, key the microphone when they tell you to log it onto Smart SDR, and now your Flex is available to you outside your house, wherever you are in the world. And it does it very well. And in a moment later, we'll show you just how transparent it is, whether you're using your Flex locally or remotely. It's the same. Very cool. Another really cool feature about the Flex is that 2 people can use the radio simultaneously. And I absolutely mean two people. So you can have somebody using the flex. In fact, you can have two people using the flex remotely or locally, or a mixture of remotely and locally. And they can be, if you're, depending on the model you have, they can be using it in full duplex mode. That means one of you can be transmitting, the other one can be receiving. It's very cool and very trick. And it's a fabulous facility to have, because if you're like me, you want to share your radio with a friend, or a friend of mine shares his radio with me, it's really nice that I can just log in, have a quick listen on his antenna without disturbing his radio or denying him the use of his radio. So some of our customers have shared the radio I have at home just to get a taste of flex. But I always warn the customers, be careful, the moment you start using a flex, you'll get it and you'll be hooked. And do you know what? That one particular customer traded in a very nice radio for a flex because he got it. I'm sorry these are, maybe not in any specific order, but these are all things that impressed me. The other thing that was a complete surprise on the flex, I didn't expect the built-in tuner that's on the 600 variants, or it's also available as an option on the 400 variants, how good the tuner is. It's really good. It's not 3-to-1, it's at least 6-to-1. So it tunes my doublet up with a ballon, basically from 80 meters through to 12. It can do a bit of 10, and by flicking the ballon over to a 1-to-1, it tunes top band. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but you know what? That's really cool, because if you're using your transceiver remotely, you want a good tuner, because now it means you can choose the band you're operating on whilst you're remote. A fantastic feature, something you don't have to pay for extra on these 600 variants. The other thing that I was, again, not expecting to be as good as it is the support. Most of us support, we go to our retailers, the dealers, maybe the local country agent. Not with Flex. With Flex, you're dealing directly with Flex. They're extremely responsive. All your support calls are ticketed, and you can reference back to them, and things get actioned upon. And that's really handy, because some hams, they don't want to spend all their time fiddling around with the radio. They want to operate, they want to use their radio. And that's something that I noticed for me and my friend, who's got an extremely good alternative radio. I've got to mention it, 7851. That's not a bad radio. And an expert linear, again, not a bad linear. But which radio does he use the most? The Flex, with his Power Genius and his Tuner Genius. And maybe we can show you later why. But it's an extremely easy radio to integrate, or should I say the software's easy to integrate. The other thing that's really handy is the common user interface and the multi-platform support, which I like. One can use a Flex with a built-in display, such as the M series variant that I've got here, or you can use it using your laptop, or you can use it using the Maestro, which is effectively this front panel removed for remote control, or you can use your Mac, or you can use iOS on your iPad. Heck, that's pretty cool. And all of those user interfaces are similar, if not identical. They're not quite identical, but they are incredibly similar. So whether you use your Flex radio with this, or your PC or a Maestro, etc., it's not an alien environment. It's the same environment, same band scope, same resolution, same noise reduction, etc. The other thing that's kind of cool on the 600 variants is full duplex. don't know too many transceivers that will do full duplex on HF. In fact, I can't think of anyone at the moment apart from Flex. They're very cool. Now, this may be appropriate to the married hams out there. The other really nice thing about the Flex is you don't need loads of wires trailing everywhere and options and accessories and this and that. I mean, at the end of the day, you can use a Flex. Well, firstly, on this one, you can just use it with a microphone plugged in the back and a power supply, of course. But with your laptop, you got complete freedom. You can use your laptop Bluetooth headsets, as I do. Or you can use the speakers in your laptop and you can walk around with it. So all those accessories that you might have in the house, well, you can rationalise them. Whatever you got for your PC, Mac, whatever, use that. A friend of mine uses his, he's using some iPod Airs and it sounds pretty good. Something that most of us always like, because it's sort of like a new goodie, is you get frequent software updates with the Flex. That's kind of fun, because there's new features being added. And we'll come on to that a bit later as I tell you about the differences between the 6000 and the 8000 variant. One other thing that I really like is the way the speech compression's done. I'm a big believer in speech compression. So, for instance, I have an Icom IC705. That little radio's got a really cracking little speech compressor on it. I can whack that up, set the microphone, and QRP, I will get out and I will sound fantastic. Flex takes that to a different level. With its constant envelope speech compressor on it, that 100 watts that this radio produces, it sounds really powerful on air. Because it's got such effective speech compression, you can ramp the compressor right up. It still doesn't sound distorted. It sounds perfectly natural. You're using all of your 100 watts of power, and people on the other end often mistake me thinking I'm using a linear. I was speaking to Australia the other day. They were using a kilowatt. I was using 100 watts. Now, to be fair, he had a beam pointing at me, but I was just using a doublet. But still, you know, not bad. Really cool feature and really nice to have. And this is something else that may come as a surprise. I love the value for money of that Flex delivers. It really does. Now, you'll look at the website after I've spoken to you about this and you'll think, oh, these aren't cheap radios. No, they're not. But unlike a lot of other radios, there's no roofing filters to purchase, it doesn't need them. The accessories, well, again, unless you're, there are accessories, there's the Tuner Genius and Power Genius. One's a linear and one's the tuner for the linear. But you don't have to have those, and you've probably got a PC microphone and stuff already. So really, this is very much a plug and go system. And it looks nice and neat in the house. So that's enough of just the bits what I particularly like about the Flex. So now maybe we'll go into a little bit more detail about the differences in the variations of Flex and how you can access the radio. So before we get on to some of the cool remote features you can do with the Flex, let's have a look at this particular Flex I have in front of me here. This is an 8600M, and the M denotes it's got a front panel display with control knobs and looks very much like a normal radio. I'm going to show you a couple of ways you can utilize this. You've got a mixture of buttons and you have a touch screen here. So I'm going to show you, because I mainly use mine with a PC, you'll notice I'll be touching the display, but I will make as much use of the buttons as I can, because I'm used to using the mouse. So let's have a look at here first. So let's give you a little bit of volume here. Now, one very cool feature about the Flex is you want to scroll around the band, see what's going on. You can just swipe around. You can swipe around to see what's on. which is rather underwhelming at the moment. But also, if you want a nice big snapshot of the RF spectrum, you can pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom, pinch and zoom. Look at that. So we are going all the way now from below 9 megahertz to over 21 megahertz. That's a pretty big chunk of spectrum there. And indeed, you can see that our beam, it's a 20-meter beam, is basically, that's where it's sensitive. So let's stretch that out again, and maybe we can find some signals in a moment. So now I've found an SSB signal. It's registering on the spectrum scope and it's registering on the band scope. I'll just show you a little bit of audio there, and you can tune, well, when he starts talking again. But you've got your volume control, and you've got the AGC control, which is probably easiest to think about as an RF gain control. On the menus, you can change band using the band selector here. You've got, of course, noise blankers, tunable notch filters, noise reduction, DACs. Very briefly, that replaces virtual audio cable that a lot of people need to use if they're running both client software, i.e. some radio software, Thetis for instance, on the same machine that you're running if you want to interface it with something like FT8. DACs outputs virtually in software, so you can then interface that to your other application. So on the PC variant, you can have both Smart SDR and SDR running on the same unit. The other thing I want to show you is you have both your antenna selector, but also your preamplifier setting. In there. One thing I just want to point out though is that I currently have the AGC for the band scope turned off, because I personally like manual control over my contrast settings over the band scope. But you can enable AGC and it will in a few minutes just retune itself down to give you the desired level of contrast. I prefer to do it manually because it gives you a nice contrast. So the other things you've got in the menu is you've got a very comprehensive menu here. Those of you with BDIs will notice the GPS function. As this is an 8000 series platform, it comes as standard with GPS, which means that your TX frequency is smack on frequency because it's referenced to the GPS clock. You can adjust various things such as the display, etc. I don't need to go into the absolute nitty-gritty of it because we'll be here all day, but I want you to see there are lots of features on here and adjustments, but unlike its brother, the Anan, it's hard. They have rationalized the amount of controls you've got, so you have enough controls to make you sound good on air and get a good reception, but not so many that you'll render the radio inoperable. You know, just a brief example. Audio. It's all pretty. Let me just show you a few more things. Yeah, I wanted to show you this. This is the graphic equalizer for the TX settings. Now, hasn't got as many as the Anan, but do you know what? It's got enough. And on the compression settings, the Anan, you can tune it till your heart's content. This has got three. It's got none, DX and DX plus. But do you know what? It's enough. Again, this is a radio for people that want to operate as opposed to mess around with the radio. And there's nothing wrong with messing around with the radio, but if you actually just want to use the radio, or if you haven't used the radio for about 6 months and you come back to it, this is pretty straightforward to work out where you left off and get the radio sorted. Even if you reset it, the Anand, it can take, you know, you need to get that manual out again. I'm telling you you know how much I like the Anand. So we can use this radio both using the touch screen, or we can use the volume control, the actual physical controls. I mean, I can tune it by tapping and then fine-tuning it with the VFO. Very similar on the PC, you can fine-tune it with the mouse wheel or with the flex control. You've got your two sets of buttons for both the two slices, basically. Could be two receivers or two slices. If you want to activate a second slice, you just tap that, and if we want to have a second receiver, we've now got receiver 1 and 2, button controls for 1 and 2. So we've got two slices here, two separate frequencies, and now you can do your duplex operation, etc. And on this particular radio you can have even more, but for the sake of keeping this uncluttered, we've got two receivers up at the moment. And you can get into the menus either using the touch display or the buttons, whichever you're comfortable with. You've got things like MOX here for transmitting. I won't do that now because I don't know who else is on the air antenna this morning. You've got the tune button for activating, on this model as it's a 600 variant, the built-in tuner, which, like I said earlier, is very good. And you've got user programmable buttons that you can program to do whatever you like as a shortcut. And then on this one, of course, you've got the other VFO, so you can have one button for the main VFO and one button for the sub VFO. But I use the word sub, better to maybe say VFO2, because the sub is exactly the same as the main VFO. So you've got two identical receivers. So that's a 600 variant. Oh, incidentally, something to point out on the 600 variants, it's got a built-in speaker. I mention that because, as some of you, some of the Anand users will know that the built-in interface on the Anand does not have a speaker in it. So this is a fully functional, self-contained radio with HDMI output. In fact, maybe we'll have a look at the back ports in a moment. But it's got HDMI out, so you can take this screen and feed it out onto a bigger display. You've got two antenna ports which feed into separate, on this model, separate receivers. You remember the last video I did, TS890. This is not a TS890. The TS890 is amazing. The front panel on it looks gorgeous. But this panel is very, very functional. And the radio behind it, this really does knock a lot of other transceivers to dust in performance-wise. But one thing I want to point out, again, if you do opt for this one, is that this front panel is not just a display. It's actually got a PC inside it. And all of these buttons here, knobs, they're all encoders. And I'm mentioning that because encoders don't go scratchy, and anyone that's got a volume control that has a min and max probably doesn't use an encoder. It's using a less costly variable resistor, and over the years it will go scratchy. Not this one. These are all encoded, so I can turn this transceiver off now, fiddle around with all the buttons, as my grandson often does but turn the radio back on and all the settings will be as I switched it off. That's actually kind of cool, and it's expensive. It's expensive to do, and that's why you're paying extra for the front panel, because it might be Spartan, but what there is here feels good. It's got nice quality encoders, and they're very functional and robust. So that's the front panel, and now I'm going to show you the back panel, and we'll do a bit of remote controlling, and I'll show you the features from a PC. So, we'll have a quick look at the back panel. I'm not going to pretend that I've used all of these ports, but you know, I know enough. You've got your two conventional. You have here a microphone. This is an unbalanced microphone. This is what's supplied with the Flex radio as standard. So you've got the microphone input port, and then you've got your PTT line. These are the two connections that you'll use for your supplied Flex microphone. You do have the option of using a balanced microphone input as well. You have output for an external speaker as well. These ports, for many of us, I'd say most of the Flex users, they don't use these because you'll quite likely be using something attached to a computer, but you might not. Really depends how you operate the radio. If you're using this with the front panel as it is and not using anything externally, sure, you'll plug in your microphone or your balanced microphone, your press to talk line. You've also got AS. This is for driving a linear, but if you're using a Flex product like the Power Genius linear, you don't need to worry about this. All you need to plug in a Power Genius is, well, in fact, you don't plug it into this, you plug it into your LAN. So you plug this into your LAN, you plug your Power Genius into LAN, and all this is, frankly, you don't have to worry about it. Neither with the Tuner Genius. All the band selection, all the PTT data is sent over the LAN. Super easy. But if you want to use a third-party amplifier which doesn't have that capability, you've got the outputs here to drive a linear. Also, you've got your accessory port as well. On this model, because it's got a built-in display, and hence it's got a PC in it, and hence the PC's got an HDMI output, that's the HDMI output to drive a monitor. That's not on the non-M variants without the built-in display. And we'll show you what a non-M variant looks like in a moment. And also you have ports for your transverter. And of course your 10 megs reference if you want to calibrate something to it. I don't need to tell you what that is. Yes, that's for your power, and yes, that's for your earth. Some radios have got more ports on the back, etc. But the real trick of the Flex is you kind of don't need it because you've got the Ethernet port. One critical thing is this is standard on all of the 8000 series. That's the port for your supplied GPS antenna. It comes with the package. You put that, it picks up it mostly picks up GPS satellites. It doesn't have to just be GPS. It can be Galileo or one of the other constellations. Picks it up from most houses, but if it doesn't, there is an accessory to lengthen that and have the GPS antenna somewhere else. However, I'm just mentioning this is not critical. The Flexes are incredibly accurate. They've got TXOs in them. I mean, they are extremely accurate anyway, but they are absolutely spot on when you use this. Once you're using the GPS on the 8000 series, really you don't need to bother anymore going to some reference clock or something, because this really is as good as you're going to ever need. Maybe with a transverter, if you're operating on the gigahertz bands, maybe then this becomes more relevant and appropriate. So that's the rear of the radio, and now let's have a quick look at how the remote control features work on a laptop, and what we'll do is we'll log in to my Flex, that's a giveaway, at my house, and you can see how similar it is, well, identical it is to operating locally. Okay, so now we've got rid of the Flex and I've booted up my laptop, and we're going to have a look at how I tend to use the Flex, both locally at home and remotely. One thing I don't have with me is my Bluetooth headsets, which I normally use when I'm transceiving. So we're on a normal Windows. This is a Windows machine, which incidentally is the base platform for Flex's Smart SDR. So Smart SDR is available for free download from Flex. If you want the iOS or the Mac variants, there is a small fee to pay to the developer, but it's extremely good software, so well worth it. So let's open up Smart SDR. Before I do that, I want to just show you some other icons. That's Smart SDR, which I'm circling now with the mouse. That's the main interface program, which you saw a version of on the front panel of the Flex we just looked at. We've got another app here. This is for the Power Genius. This is the linear amplifier. This, the TG is Tuner Genius, which is the tuner, which is often used in conjunction with the Power Genius. We've got the DAC software, which is equivalent to virtual audio cable that some people have to use if they want to interface one application with another on the same machine. With the Flex, it's supplied as DACs. And you've got cat control, which I haven't used, but you can use it to cat control various other items. But I'll show you a little use for DACs in a moment. So let's start up Smart SDR. So I'm double clicking on this. What we're going to log on to now is not a radio that's in the store. This radio is about 20 miles away from here at my house. You probably can see it there. When you've got this sign Smart Link up, this means that radio is available via remote control. And it's also indicating there multiflex, because I also have a Maestro connected, which is just behind me in the shop, which is also concurrently accessing the radio on a different frequency. But let's start it up. Oh, just before I do, this low bandwidth connect. Now, some of you that have used and want to use an ANAN remote know that it's extremely, more than extremely difficult to get it to remote control. Very few people have done so. There are various hacks for it, but you can't directly connect the Thetis client to an ANAN unless you've got a gigabit connection to your house from remote, which not many of us have. The Flex doesn't need that because all of the data crunching of the software is actually done on the radio, so it uses a thin client technology as opposed to a fat client technology of the ANAN. So here we've got a low bandwidth connect option. If you really are on a really bad connection, this will basically give up some of the fidelity of the band scope. But my connection at home is fine, and so is our shop. So we're just starting up Smart SDR, and here you instantly see the radio. I'm just going to give you just a little bit of audio, just so you can hear it. So this software, by the way, these lines, this is not normal. Our shop here has a very, very busy Wi-Fi and a very busy router. That's literally just caused by the dropouts caused by the load on our network. Tuning around here, very easy. So on the PC variant, you can alter the size of your spectrum scope or your waterfall. You can alter the amount, how much of the spectrum you're seeing very easily. You've got your menu settings. Again, you'll probably remember we saw some of those on the 8600M, and then slightly differently, because we haven't got any knobs and buttons, we've got the main control interface here, where you've got access to all of your things like bandwidth, AGC, noise reduction. This panel, you've got a different way of getting into the filtering controls and the noise reduction. You can mute the speaker, etc. if you want to. Transfer to settings. The DAX, the DAX software, which I will show you briefly. Just going to leave that running. I'll start up DAX. And you'll see that it's got more than one channel on the DAX, so you can output to various things. So here we're outputting on slice A, and that's outputting ready to be used by one of the DAX channels. The other thing on the way Smart SDR is written is you can have two instances of Smart SDR running on the PC at the same time. If you should so wish, you might have a reason for doing that, but it is possible to do. Here you've got your antenna selector, and you've got various gain controls for the antenna selector. And again, I've got the band scope set on manual because I'm fussy. And you've got tunable notch filters, which can follow. You've got an automatic one and one that you can set if you've got someone that's loading up on your frequency. Usually, I use these controls up here. Now, one thing I want to show you, this here is your S meter, which you can, at a click, switch to dBm. I think that's kind of cool, that, because sometimes you want to be a bit more scientific than just S points. So if you get it called into who's got an accurate S meter reading and what's it referencing, blah, 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 you can just go away from S points and talk about dBm. And that meter is reading accurate. In fact, I'll show you. See that S8? I'm going to turn up the amplifier. Give it a moment to settle down. S7, S8 again. So the antenna gain does not affect the S meter reading. Very cool. And like I say, if I turn the band scope to auto, it will just give me the preset factory, irrespective of where I've set the gain controls, etc. I normally set the radio up with the AGC set to, this is as per Flex's recommendations, AGC set to slow, the slider on 35%, and I have the antenna set one click in from the left, and that gives you a very nice low noise performance. And to tune around, you can use the mouse wheel, which I'm going to show you here. I'm using a mouse. This is my mouse. It's a left-handed mouse because I'm left-hander. You can tune the mouse wheel, or you can double click, or you can grab this and tune it manually like this. So there's various ways of operating it. You can get rid of your panel altogether if you just want. Sorry, that's a PC thing. So if you want to get rid of all of the controls, but I normally have the panel displaying. You can start up a second receiver if you should so wish. You can minimize it. You can do all the normal PC things. The other thing is you've got both preset filters, and these filters, by the way, if you have the 600 variant flexes, be it a 6600 or an 8600 flex, they have tighter filters on them internally. So if you're in a crowded band, you can resolve and get past the splatter easier. You've got preset filters, go out to 6 kilohertz if you want. I normally have it on 2.7, but indeed you've got control to manually adjust these as well. You can manually adjust the filters using the sliders, but I normally have it on 2.7 with some noise reduction. As you can see here, I've got this is where I have my graphics set. You've got both control for transmit and a receive. The receive is flat. Transmit, I've got some boost on the 2 kilohertz frequency. And up here, you can have the inputs from the radio or a PC. It's currently set on PC, but you can have it from the supplied flex mic, or if you're going to use a balance line, you can do that, or of course you've got line inputs as well. To tune the radio, you've got, of course, the tune. So the tune button basically will put, I normally have that, in fact I was just messing around with it this morning. The tune button just puts a steady state carrier out. The ATU, if you have an ATU, this will be accessible, and that's just now quickly tuning up on a low power for the frequency, but the ATU only affects your transmitter because the receiver is connected directly to the antenna without going through any bandpass filters. And of course you've got your power output slider. I wanted to quickly show you the compression, which is sometimes you can't see. There we go. The compressor, you've got normal, going to DX. That's something they've just updated. This is actually an update. They basically, you couldn't go in between before, but they've updated it now. So now you can slide it all the way from nothing to full. But full compression on the flex doesn't sound like other radios. You'll be hard to tell it's been compressed. It's that clever and that clean. And then here, these 2 meters, the compression and the level, I find my PC microphone normally just kicks it up to about 0, which is about right. And then you can see with the band how active the compressor is compressing. So when you've got this slid right back, there won't be any red there at all. But when you've got it on DX Plus, it will be compressing loads of your speech. So that's just a quick overview of the Smart SDR software. A couple of things down here. It's telling you that multiflex is active. 2 people are using the radio, and that this laptop is logged on to SmartLink. And again, you can watch the flex videos, but SmartLink is very clever. The only time you access the flex servers is the flex servers tell you and your radio where each other are, and initiates a peer-to-peer connection. So this radio session now is directly between my laptop and the radio at home. It's not going through a flex server. All the flex server did was tell my radio where it is. So if, for instance, you gave someone your password to your SmartLink account, they can log on, see your radio and use it remotely. It's that easy. That's a really brief overview of the Smart SDR software. Some of you may see that it has some similarities to Thetis, but things like the band scope, bigger, nicer, and it's a thin client architecture. So what we're going to do now is very briefly just give you some of the differences between the 8000 series and the 6000 series radios that were in production up until last year. So very briefly, why did Flex re-architect the platform? Two things was the need for more power, compute power, and the availability of components. So those were their two drivers. The new 8000 series radios pretty much look identical to the 6000s externally. Internally, they are completely different. They have 4 times more compute power in the FPGAs than the 6000 series. The 8000 series is 4 times more powerful. But right now, we're not going to tell you that it's 4 times better radio. Absolutely not. The differences currently are very subtle. The obvious ones, like the GPS referenced oscillator, is very notable. I was hesitating just then because they do have an upgrade option called a GPS disciplined oscillator, which it doesn't come as standard, but that goes from, I think, a hertz to sub-hertz accuracy. So frankly not needed for most people. But that's standard. That's the obvious one you'll notice on the 8000 series. The rest of it is very subtle. You will notice that the band scope on the 8000 platform has a little bit more detail. You will also notice that the transmit audio quality is a little bit crisper. This is from a friend of mine who went from a 6000 series to an 8000 series platform. That's right now, but going forward, what Flex have committed to in several of their presentations from their CEO is that they will be implementing dynamic pre-distortion. So pre-distortion is a term familiar to ANAN users. It's now a term familiar to 7610 users from ICOM, but unlike, I'm not sure how the ANAN one works, but the ICOM one is a preset pre-distortion. The Flex's pre-distortion will be dynamic, and that means it will be constantly looking at the output and adjusting the input to give you the maximum power and cleanness of your transmission to eliminate or vastly reduce any sidebands. So they've committed to that. It's very hard to do. It needs a lot of processing horsepower, but that's one of the drivers why they went to the 8000. And I suspect they will also be looking at implementing the more power hungry, or should I say compute power hungry, noise reduction that open sourced in the ANAN Power SDR software. The ANAN users will know this as noise reduction too. They'll be implementing that, I am sure, on Flex, but it needs a lot more horsepower to do that, and that will be coming. The other feature that they will also be implementing for the 600 variants, so the 8600 and the 8600M, is antenna diversity. You need 2 physically different receivers to do this, but this, utilizing phasing, will give you the ability to potentially eliminate noise and do some other clever things that you can do with antenna diversity. There's a version of it implemented at the moment, but it's not true antenna diversity. If you want any more information, please give us a call. Love to talk to you, or visit our website, or drop us an email. Be good to see you. And by the way, do come in the store. We've got all these here working, and if you want remote access, well, maybe we can arrange that. Thank you very much, and goodbye.